Here, stop, play!
It's all nice and neat. And snow continues to fall. It's lighting up a little bit, not as heavy as it was about 30 minutes ago. Oh, he's throwing the football, getting pressure.
The Comets, right to left motion, handoff again to the back up the middle. He's got running room.
Well, offensive linemen don't like to run block consistently like this. You got to be tough to do stuff like this, and it's working. And another run to the right side.
1st and 10. And you can see how the Comets line up, and then they go to that strong, again, to the left side.
Play.
This time all that moving around didn't work.
Hello, football fans. Ryan here. We're joining this game nearly halfway through the second quarter, but this is how the field looked when the game started. I'm not a meteorologist or anything, but I think a low-pressure system may have come through. The inclement weather may explain why we don't have any flags for illegal shift on these 4 plays, all consecutive. Perhaps the crew didn't want to endure the snow any more than they had to by throwing a bunch of flags for something as wonky and as technical as an illegal shift. And of course, these aren't the worst illegal shifts the Gridiron has ever seen. But we're warm and dry, so we're going to talk about illegal shifts at length. Now, we're not here to throw this crew under the bus for anything they did or did not do. We're here to sink our teeth into illegal shifts. So the next time we take the field, we are experts in illegal shifting. To start our teeth sinking, we must enter Insomniac Theater. In other words, we need to go to the NFHS rulebook. Rule 7, Section 2, Article 6.
After a huddle or shift, all players of age shall come to an absolute stop and shall remain stationary simultaneously without movement of hands, feet, head, or body for at least 1 second before the snap.
Before hitting the snooze button, we should probably check out the definitions for huddle and shift. Rule 2, Section 21.
A huddle is 2 or more players of the same team grouped together before a down.
Rule 2, Section 39.
A shift is the action of 1 or more offensive players who, after a huddle or after taking set positions, move to a new set position before the ensuing snap.
Hopefully you're still awake. For further clarification, let's read what George Dimitro has to say in the Reading Study Guide to NFHS Football Rules 2022 edition.
If a player on the offensive team moves to a new position after the ready and before the snap, it is a shift. There might be several shifts between the ready and the snap, but no matter how many there are, after the last shift all members of the offensive team must stop and remain still for at least 1 second. After this 1 second pause, the ball may be snapped, or one player may go legally in motion and still be moving away from or parallel to his scrimmage line when the ball is snapped. The point is the shift must be separated from the rest of the action by the 1 second pause.
I think we can categorize the majority of illegal shifts we'll see into 2 types. One type is when player movements overlap and the snap occurs without all offensive players being motionless for at least 1 second at the same time. I call this cascading motion. Overlapping motion would work too, but cascading is such a great word. Cascading. It just sounds so nice and cozy. A typical example of this is a player going in motion as a lineman gets into his or her stance. The other type of illegal shift is when all offensive players are motionless, but it's for a duration less than a second. Obviously, the other type I just mentioned is guilty of this too, but I find these descriptions help me to identify illegal shifts as it describes what we're likely to see during a game. Now, officials aren't going to time this 1 second with a stopwatch or anything, so in practice, it's just a nice long pause that might actually be less than a second. You might see this type of illegal shift when the offense wants to catch the defense off guard or the offense is up against the clock. Clearly, illegal shift is a very technical rule, a rule I imagine most football fans don't understand, and probably a lot of players and coaches too, but hopefully not this YouTube creator. It's a foul officials call and those in the stands are like, what? Huh? How's that? Is the concession stand still open? I found this series of plays interesting because it appears to me we have illegal shifts on at least 4 consecutive plays. The offense runs a rather novel shift, which is fine, but players are still getting into their final stance when another player goes in motion. All the offensive players were not motionless for at least 1 second before the player goes in motion. Ergo, we have an illegal shift. The same thing happens on the very next play. To make the shifting easier to recognize, I have highlighted the illegal shifters. On the third play, it appears the team was all set at the same time, but for a duration much shorter than the second. This might be the most egregious of the bunch. For the fourth play, the offensive team returns to the cascading motion. Just saying cascading makes me feel all warm inside. Are these types of illegal shifts a big deal? They're certainly not a safety issue, and they don't give the offense much of an advantage, if any. I suppose one could argue it gives defense less time to adjust, or it allows the offensive players to remain in his or her stance for a shorter amount of time. But if an offense gets away with this type of action, they aren't automatically unstoppable. They're not OP. That's a video game term. If you don't know what it means, go ask your grandchildren. Also, one official has to see the action, and depending on how the illegal shift goes down, that might be difficult. Heck, I bet you had trouble seeing the illegal shifts on this video. I know I did, and I've watched these plays a bazillion times. Okay, so we have weather that might have put the crew in the let's get out of here as fast as we can mode. It's a complicated foul, and it's a foul that doesn't really give the offense much of an advantage. So if we see illegal shifts like the kind we see in this video, which I think we'll all agree on are not the most obvious in the world, are we throwing the flag? I'll leave that up to you, but please put your philosophy in the comments section below. I will, however, tell you my opinion. At the very least, that will kick off our discussion. 1. This is a playoff game, so I'd call it the first time I saw it. If you're a playoff team, your shifts shouldn't be of the illegal variety. If it wasn't a playoff game, or if it wasn't a big game between two top programs, I'd probably treat the first illegal shift as a one-off. They are kids after all. The second play, I'm telling the coach. The third time, I'm throwing the flag. Here's a play from one of my games. The offense had an illegal shift, cascading motion, and to make matters worse, they scored. No flag for illegal shift. Why? Well, I wasn't calling that foul in that game, even on a scoring play. God bless those two schools, but for that matchup, an illegal shift like that would have been a little too much. But if you want to take me to task for missing an illegal shift, that's okay. I'll take the hit. Because in that game, we called a second sideline interference, and I nailed the signal, and we correctly enforced the penalty. In that game, I'll trade a missed illegal shift. I know it was a touchdown, but it had no effect on the play for getting the sideline interference right. What do you think about illegal shifts? Am I being too pedantic? Am I not being pedantic enough? What is your threshold for throwing the flag for an illegal shift? Do you want them big, or are they binary? Also, how proud of me are you for not saying shift happens once in this video? I watch a lot of high school football, and I see a lot of illegal shifts that are not called, which may or may not be an issue. But whether we want to call it tight or we want to call it loose, we first have to know what an illegal shift is. If this video helped you in that aim, please like and subscribe. If you're already a high school football official, have a great season. If you're not a high school football official, now is the perfect time to become one. Contact the Evergreen Football Officials Association and we'll help you make it happen. Until next time, we're the EFOA, making good officials better.